Good morning. I hope y'all are doing well today. My name is Brenda Weimer with the Springville Senior Center, and today we are doing murder mysteries, and today we are doing one that hits a little close to home. It is a Tri-County murder, and it is by Miss Viola Hyatt. Now, I do not know if the Hyatts that are located in Springville and Asheville are descendants of Miss Viola. I know she herself did not have any descendants, so it could be aunts and uncles that are related, and it may not even be the same Hyatt family. It may be different relatives or different people with the same name. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. Miss Viola grew up on 40 acres in a very isolated, desolate kind of area in White Plains, East Central Alabama in Calhoun County. Now, in Calhoun County, she grew up. They said that she was not a very pretty and cute baby. She was chubby, red-faced, fussy baby. She grew up into an obese young lady and was described as very plain. She had long black hair. It was very coarse and resisted attempts to keep it groomed. Her skin was studded with moles and blemishes, and she was equally unattractive, as we're told. Everybody said that her clear blue eyes were her best feature, and it was marred by frequent redness due to infected eyelids. Now, her family, like I said, was desperately poor. Martin Hyatt, her dad, lived as a hog farmer on a small plot of inherited land near the community of White Plains. Their framed farmhouse was unpainted. They had a barn and other outbuildings that stood on the grounds, and there was also a trailer on the property. Now, it was not a pleasant place to live, but the Hyatts had no choice. Ironically, locals call the community the garden spot of the world, though. So Viola was stranded on this isolated farm. She wasn't around and didn't have a lot of interaction with the other children. She did suffer and had a very sullen demeanor and sudden outburst of explosive rage, causing her to be disliked. Children used to make fun of her at the family gatherings, and she would always just maintain a stoic expression and made no reply to them. Her mom was a slightly built woman, entirely different from her daughter in appearance. She had very long blonde hair that was silken, and her mom was said to spend hours at night carefully brushing it. She had fair skin, pleasing facial features, we're told. In her youth, her mom had been considered a beauty, but penury and sickness had taken their toll on her mom. She coughed a lot and would always light up cigarettes, and she bitterly resented her lot in life. Now, she would always say, "I don't know why God is punishing me for sending me a husband like your pa and a girl like you." She would always complain to Viola, and she would always say, "I don't deserve this. You know, it just makes me sick to my stomach, and one day you're going to come home from school and you're going to find me gone." Well, Viola constantly heard this. She would always go cry herself to sleep, and finally one day she had no tears to shed, and she came home and did find her mom gone. So Mr. Hyatt was ill-prepared to function as a single parent. He did the best that he could, especially having a daughter. Eventually, he wed a lady named Jessie Wheeler. She was a woman in her mid-30s who had never been married. She was unable to control her stepdaughter because she said her stepdaughter got whatever she wanted, was accustomed to getting her way. Mr. Hyatt refused to back up his wife in an attempt to discipline Viola, and she soon became an object in fear of Viola. Over time, Viola learned to cook reasonably well and kept the house as clean as conditions could permit. Now, of course, with pigs, over 24 pigs on the farm, and no air conditioning, especially in the hottest days of the summer, it produced a stench that could even be tasted in your mouth. Viola hated these hogs, both for their odor and the hard work required to feeding and cleaning up after them. She was very essential to the farm, though. She helped in every way that she could. She always demanded of her father that she wanted to help him process and kill the hogs, and he told her no, that wasn't work for a young girl, and he would always encourage her to go back inside and learn how to cook supper. She became very tall, powerfully built, very strong and big-boned, due to the strenuous farm work in addition to the household chores that she would have. So she developed considerable strength, especially in her arm and hands. Over the years, of course, her dislike of the hogs only grew. And she would always say things like, them don't deserve to live, they're dirty, stinking varmints, they lay around and expect to be waited on and fed. Well, he continued adamantly and refused to allow her to help with the hogs. One fall, she sat at a grindstone, sharpening her father's axe. Sparks flew as the rough stone honed the blades. She felt the edge with satisfaction and a job well done. It was razor sharp and ready for use. Viola imagined with pleasure the hard steel slicing through the warm flesh of the hogs. Saturday morning, Mr. Hyatt jerked awake by a loud squeal followed by silence. Something's bothering the hogs, he thought. Customers would be expected their usual meat delivery soon, so he got up to investigate. When he reached the hog pen, he made an astonishing discovery. The largest hog lay on its side in a pool of blood, and its head was severed from its body. Viola was covered in gore and had forced another animal into the corner of the pen and was already swinging the axe downward with violent fury. The hog died instantly. He said, "Daughter, what are you doing? I told you I'd take care of the butchering the hog." She turned to face him with a strange look. Of course, blood's dripping off of her body, running down her dress and her hem. And she said, "You're getting old, Paul. It's time you had some help." After that, Viola not only killed the hogs, but also chopped them into salable parts. She learned quickly and did expert work, so that no longer objected when hog killing time came around. By the time she was 18, she ended up doing all the butchering. He only had to market the pork. Ready to take advantage of the opportunity to increase his income, he hired 2 men. They were middle-aged. They both had been in the World War II, and one of them had been in the Battle of Death March. They worked with a construction company called Ace Construction that built railroad in Jacksonville. And they worked out a deal with her father to live on the property, to pay their way and pay rent. And they said they would pay extra if Viola would make them meals and bring them to them at night. So they made the deal. Of course, this time they're staying in the small trailer that was, on concrete blocks. They would always pick on Viola. They were very cruel to her. They said that it was said that she dated Lee Harper for a while, but that both men had really treated her bad. They said that they were always being hateful. The father thought that they were mistreating her. He said that was not part of the deal. He never told them to leave, but he told them to stop picking on her. The dad, I don't know if he knew that they were taking advantage of her and physically abusing her sexually, but the father did step up and tell them to stop whatever they were doing, but I don't know that he took it any further than that. To my knowledge, the dad drank a lot, and so did these 2 men that worked for him. Finally, Viola had all she was going to have, and the next morning, on June the 27th in 1959, she loaded her father's shotgun, walked to the trailer, knocked loudly, told both of them to get up. She called them bastards. She said, "I have something to settle with you." And they said, "What do you mean waking us up this early? Get gone and call us when you've had breakfast ready." Suddenly, the men were, she spotted the level shotgun, shot him in the face. Emmett came out of the bedroom. She shot Emmett. She couldn't get him up into the 1957 Ford Galaxy, so she went and got her dad's double-edged axe in a wheelbarrow, cut up all their body parts, put them in the car, and just started driving. She drove through Calhoun County, Gadsden. It said that she made it through Etowah County, Cleveland County, and had also come into Asheville, Alabama. She was slung out arms and legs and different body parts all through Etowah County, Tallapoosa River, supposedly the Talladega National Forest. There were some parts that were never found. Said she came down Highway 11 near, like I said, Attala, Rainbow City, Asheville. The police were unable to identify the remains of some of the parts that they found at first. They were calling them Mr. X and Mr. Y. When the bodies were delivered to the funeral home in Gadsden, the owner balked He said you can't bring something like that so bad in here. People will never use this place again. They ended up doing autopsies out in the parking lot, even though it was hot weather. And for 17 days straight, they got a lot of tips and different things. Finally, they found out that the two men there were two men that had disappeared from Ace Construction Company that couldn't be located. Something that Viola did, she called right after she had killed the men and said they wouldn't be coming into work for several days, that they were going to visit their sick mother. Now, Viola's role would be uncovered. It was inevitable. They linked these two men from Ace Construction back to where Viola and her family lived. They put the connection together that that's where they had been staying. And of course, they found her incriminating phone call, the blood and hair in the trunk of the men's cars, the damaged trailer door, the blood stains, and everything, because she couldn't clean it all up. Needless to say, she ended up, they tried to see if she was mentally ill, if that's what had happened. They ended up finding out that the father was not in connection. They let him go because they did interview everybody. It took Viola 6 hours before she would ever confess to anything. They had numerous people try to do interviews with her, including a minister who came to offer spiritual aid to her. They had the trial set. Her 72-year-old father showed up. She had looked into her father's direction, but nothing was said between them during the court. Basically, there was a lot of spectators and everything. She told her father that she intended to accept the deal that was given to her. He guessed that it was the best thing to do. The attorneys felt that her having cut up the bodies would have had a strong effect on the jurors. If they were just concerned with the shooting, they said there would have been some danger as far as the state was concerned. But basically, they put her in the Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women. She served 10 years there. And on April the 15th, 1970, after years of her being in prison for women, the state pardoned her. The parole board unanimously voted to parole Viola. She returned to the area where she lived in a trailer park, quietly and in isolation until her death in the hospital in Jacksonville in 1992. She never discussed her experience with anybody, even her family, and she refused to grant interviews. Where she had buried the axe up under a tree, there was not any evidence to say it, but some people speculate and believe that she may have been pregnant by one of these two men, and they thought that she was just getting even because of them abusing her mentally, emotionally, and physically, but in the sexual aspect of it. But she said that's not why. So something happened dramatically to her, that she went off the deep end, and she just went crazy. And they said that she never would talk to anybody about it. But her family, a lot of people said that she was just always a good girl, that she loved church, she loved singing in church, she loved, just, everybody just thought she was great. There's family members that have mentioned that she was always kind. One of her nieces said that she was always a kind lady to her. But her parents didn't like that. She had given them a teddy bear or something, and there's a movie made out about it called Viola, about this story. Again, here's Viola. And there is a family member that is mentioned. The Jacksonville Paranormal Activities Unit went out to one of the properties where one of the descendants lives. It's through her father's side of the family that is related, like aunt or uncle. Of course, if it's her father, but it's deemed in the property that it goes to a woman every so many years or something. But this young lady has very short hair. She's in her 30s, and she actually, you can see the family resembles the dark colored hair and the high cheekbone structure. If you go and check that out on YouTube, you can find that. I don't know that I believe in some of the stuff that was going on there as they did the paranormal investigation. But there is rumor to believe that there was an ancient ancestor of Indians living on the property as well. And we all know that Indians were in the territory back in the day. So that's something to look at. Researching more about the family. Now, like I said before, I know there's a lot of Hyatts, Hyatt, in this area, but I do not know that any of them are related. I'm not sure that any of the ones in Springville and Asheville are related. It could just be a coincidence in the last name. Kind of like Smith. There's a lot of Smiths, a lot of Patels, things like that, that people are familiar with. So I do not know if they are physically related or not, but very interesting. It's also interesting that there were a lot of notorious women, at least 5 women back in this time period in the late 50s, early 60s, that murdered people or murdered their spouses or family members. And we're going to be looking at some of those in the near future as well. So check that out. But if you're wanting to know more information, again, it is Viola Hyatt. Look it up online if you've got internet and check it out. And I bet you can find some things in archives and maybe even at the Preservation Society in some of these locations of Calhoun County and Gaston and Jacksonville that probably tell the story. I know there's lots of news articles and news clippings. Again, this was considered the axe murderess and also the Tri-County murder. So definitely check it out. Hope you guys have found this very interesting and educational and a big part of history. And until next time, we'll see you then.